Kuphina kuphi emakhaya emadolobheni lapho ubuyela khona SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Hayi ke ama-Afrika vula igate ngoba ke mavulandlela sekafikile. Ilungelo lakho, it's your right. Mina ke ngingisimphiwe eNcongwane. Bukele kule sikhathi ke sebunzima sesimo ke lesilethwe i-COVID-19 nemnotho ke lontengantengako lapho ke abantu balahlekelwa imisebenzi ke bekungakwathi ke kumelana netabo. Sesikhathi ke lapho ke labaningi bafuna kwathi kabani ukuthi ngabe disebenza kanjani ke imishwalense lesikhokhela ke amabhondi ethu, tikwenethi temoto kanye ke naletinye timpahla. But let's get straight into our show today to see how your credit insurance comes in handy for you at this very, very difficult time. The COVID-19 pandemic caught almost everybody by total surprise, leaving in its wake a trail of turmoil and financial uncertainty. Millions of consumers with debt have had to scramble for money just to pay their loans due to loss of income or even retrenchments. Now, financial experts found this state of consumer panic baffling, as most seem unaware that their debt have been taken care of.
Uqoqosho lwalapha ekhaya luxhase ubukhulu becala ngabathengi abakholwa ukuthatha impahla ngoku ze inhlawulo ilandeliswe emva kwexesha elithile. Babalelwa ngezigidi abantu abathenga ngetyala, ingakuthenga isithuthi, indlu okanye nayiphina impahla exabiso. Ngokwesithethe umuntu othenga ngolu hlobo uyacetyiswa ukuba makathathe i-insurance. Oku kwenzelwa mhla umthengi wathi wakaxeleka ingxakini akabi nandlela yokwenza inhlawulo ebilindelwe. I-insurance ithi ingenelele ngokubhatala ityala elo. Kule mihla uninzi lwabantu luthe lwaphulukana nemisebenzi lusajongene namatyala ekufuneka ihlawulwe. Umnqango wokuba izigidi zabo bantu zihleli exhaleni zicinga ngamatyala ayingahlawulwa kodwa bathatha le insurance.
When we did the research, we realized that about 26% of policyholders actually don't know that they have credit insurance. And that's a huge chunk, which means that they don't know that they have that cover whenever they come into financial difficulty. And I think that's an important thing that people need to note. And I think maybe it stems from the fact that they, first of all, didn't read the policy. But secondly, also from the salesperson side, I think not enough was disclosed, or they weren't taken through the full contract at the time. And I think by law, the contract needs to be simple and understandable, and any consumer or a potential consumer needs to be made aware of what they are signing.
Iziko i-Financial Services Conduct Authority ithe gqolo ngokufundisa abantu uphathwa kwemali. Ulindwe Clark wongamele icandelo elifundisa abantu ngemali kweli ziko. Uthi indlela ingqondo yomthengi esebenza ngayo xa esevinkileni iyamangalisa.
Your first instinct is to go buy the asset. You want to buy the TV, you want to buy a new lounge suite. So at the point of sale, I think that is where a lot of things happen, and a lot of unfortunate things also happen, because at the point of sale, the customer is so excited about getting the asset. I'm buying a TV. What are you talking about insurance? And I think that's where customers need to be very careful and very diligent to say, okay guys, I'm buying this television, but what if something happens to me?
Luka Clark, uthi xa uthenga nantoni na ngetyala akufunekanga uthathe nje nayiphi na i-insurance oyinikwayo kuba azisebenzi ngokufanayo.
If you buy a house or a car, then the bank or whoever is your credit provider might insist that before you drive the car off the lot, you must have insurance to cover something against the loss of that asset or against the damage of that asset. So if you have a house and a wall falls down, then obviously you don't have to pay out of your own pocket because you got credit insurance, okay? That's the first part. Credit life, however, is when you buy an asset, but it covers you in case you are unable to repay your loan. In fact, if you maybe pass on, or if you become disabled, if you get retrenched, or loss of income in some or other way. So it's very important that you now then realize if you pass on, for instance, your family don't have to worry to cover the loan that you've taken out to buy the asset, okay? And that's credit life. So it is something that you take out to cover in case something happens to you. The consumer credit is when something happens to the asset.
Ukuba unayo kanye unayo le insurance awuzokuxelwa ngunovenkile wena umuntu wesegameni lakhe kufuneka uthathe amanyathelo athile kuqala. Ingaba la manyathelo ngawaphi? Kuvuyisile Mdoda, ilungelo lakho.
Asibonge ngalo mbiko ke lesondele ngivuyisile Mdoda. Manje ukukhuluma kabanti ngendzaba yethu ke asamukele via Skype. Well, we hope to be joined by Maurice Maduleke. Yena ke uvela National Credit Regulator. Sibe naye ke nobaba Lujantshi, a debt coach. We'll also speak to her in just a moment. Kanti ke elayinini sina Lee Subrati. Yena ke umele i-Credit Ombudsman. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show, Mr. Subrati.
Thank you for having us, sir. Really appreciate the time.
Let's get straight to it. We'll start with analyzing and dissecting the distinction between credit insurance policy versus credit life insurance policy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just as the colleague intimated previously, I mean, your credit protection policy obviously will address instances where the loss of the asset, as an example, I have a vehicle and I get into an accident or the vehicle is damaged. That insurance cover will cover the physical repair or replacement of that vehicle. But when it comes to credit life insurance, then we start to speak of instances such as retrenchment cover, such as permanent or temporary disability, one's inability or even death, one's inability to pay or to service a loan agreement as a result of something or some occurrence in their life. And that can happen either being laid off from work, passing on so that the agreement is attended to, and one's family obviously can have the benefit of that loan being paid off, or any other instance applying. And also things like permanent or temporary disability. I may have an accident at work and I'm unable to work for a period of 6 months up to 12 months. And the National Credit Act provides instances where those installments can be paid up for 12 months after such an event occurring. So yes, so it's up to the consumer to inform themselves and to be aware of the distinction, especially at the time of concluding the agreement, because different situations and there's a lot of sometimes exclusions that apply, and it's up to them to inform themselves so that they know that they are covered as per their understanding of the agreement.
So how does one tell if a policy on offer will take care of all their financial obligations?
So, well, they need to read what cover is offered. Remember, your credit life insurance at this moment in time is not compulsory. So a credit provider may require it. So a consumer has a choice whether or not to take that agreement with the credit life. But remember, it comes as part and parcel of an agreement. If I approach a credit provider and they tell me, listen, I'm willing to grant you a loan, I'm willing to finance your asset, but on condition that you maintain credit life insurance so that I can secure my risk in the event that something occurs. At that point of sale, it's up to the consumer. It's also up to the provider, the person offering the insurance, to explain the insurance cover to them, what applies, how it applies, for what term will be covered, and the events that the insured event will be covered, so that the consumer can have peace of mind.
All right, please stay on the line, Mr. Subrati. We'll touch base with you in just a moment. Let me also welcome into the conversation Maurice Maduleke from the National Credit Regulator. Maduleke, but first of all, I mean, so many consumers are not advised properly about e-credit or insurance or credit insurance before they take up any product on credit.
Yeah, I think Lee and Lakho earlier have actually indicated that the importance of having a credit life to cover your credit agreement in the event of retrenchment, loss of income, death or disability. So it's a duty of the credit provider to actually take through the consumer in detail as to what is enclosed in the contract. The issue of credit life, as Lakho indicated earlier, that some of the consumers are not even aware that they have a cover in the credit agreement that they've actually signed. So excitement, yes, it actually overshadows them to an extent that they don't bother much. What they are looking forward to is the assets that they actually have acquired, forgetting that it's not a free asset, but you need to safeguard it. The issue of whether the consumer have to bring their credit life, or maybe they are compelled to actually sign up with a credit provider. In terms of the Act, you should be given an opportunity to actually, if you have a credit life of your own, you can actually use it to cover your, or maybe if you don't have, shop around, or if you are happy with what the credit provider is offering, yes, you can go with it. But it's important for consumers to actually go through the contract before they actually sign up. Hence, we actually insist on the issue of language policy as a national credit regulator, that we have different provinces where different languages are actually spoken. But obviously, there will be a dominant language. Like, I'll give you an example. KZN, we expect credit providers to actually give consumers an opportunity to decide as to whether they want it in Zulu or English. So just to make sure that it accommodates people that are actually not good with English or any other language. So it's the duty of the credit provider to make sure that they have an employer who can take through any applicant or a consumer through the contract prior to can grant them the credit. As it was indicated that we have 26% of consumers that are not even aware of the fact that they have credit life in the agreement that they've actually signed. But it's important for our consumers to make sure that we can emphasize it more, to make sure that they actually go through the credit agreement and make sure that they cover themselves.
And in the event that the credit provider does not provide or does not advise the consumer ukuthi ke babane credit life insurance, nangabe ke i-consumer selahlekelwa umsebenzi noma ke yadendwa through retrenchments or any other event, what does that mean? Nangabe ke akati yena ukuthi unayo phela i-credit insurance, uthole ukuthi ke imoto noma ke indlu or whatever product lekayithenga nge-credit seyadliwa so seyamlahlekela. What then happens? Does it mean ukuthi uyayiforfeita whatever premiums bekawabhadala?
Okay. Let's talk of at what stage can you actually use your credit life cover. When you have a loss of income, or maybe you have your income cut or reduced, it's important to actually make sure that you actually pay your premiums all the time, because if you default, it means that might actually lapse as well. So hence I've actually indicated that if there's some form of cut in or maybe reduced income, it's important to actually talk to your credit provider. But there are other debt relief measures, as I've indicated earlier, other than maybe the insurance. You can either use you can either surrender the goods, or you can decide to go under debt cancelling. Or it can only work for somebody who's employed. You go under debt cancelling, or maybe take back that goods, or maybe sell them by yourselves. Mm-hmm. This will actually avoid situations where judgment is taken against you, or maybe shortfall that you have to pay. So there are some instances where you can sell the goods and still be able to pay off your debt without a judgment being taken against you. So it's important to make sure that when you have a credit agreement, you pay it all the time, especially if it has a cover in it. It's because if you default, it means it might lapse and the cover might not be helpful at the end of the day.
All right, please hold your thoughts, Mr. Maluleke. And also you, Mr. Lee Subrati, will touch base with you in a moment. But for now, let's take a quick break. Please do join us after this. Sanimukela futhi ke bekunene ke tincingo address etivuliwe. Please do call us. Shayela ngecingo ku 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919. Ungasithumela futhi ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Ungasiphinda uthole futhi ku Facebook noma ke ku Twitter. Namhla ke bekunene sikhuluma nge-credit life insurance. Kuthi ke nangabe ke uthenge impahla nge-credit, ungabowatini ukuthi that particular credit ivikelekile yini nge-insurance. Namhla ke sina Salem Nyathi, she's a consumer coach, kanye na Lee Subrati from the Credit Ombudsman Office, kanye na Morris Maluleke, supervisor at the National Credit Regulator. Let me welcome Salem into this conversation. Salem, asakumule hlele sawubona sisi.
Ndiyabulisa bhuti wami, mandibulise nakubaphulaphuli beYilungelo lakho ababukeli.
Namhla ke sikhuluma ke nge-credit life insurance. Kuthi ke do you get a sense ukuthi ke ama-South Africans ayati yini nge-credit life insurance noma ke nabasana that particular credit agreement bayenda with excitement without taking a look at all those finer details?
Ixesha elininzi umuntu xa esiya evenkileni eyofuna ityala okanye imali akabi naxesha lokujonga into ezininzi, especially ukuba ityala eli line-insurance yobomi balo. Sifumanisile into yokuba abantu abazazi ukuba bakhuselekile, abantu abayazi neenkcukacha ezifana nokuba ityala labo lizawuthatha ixesha elingakanani, whether ityala lakho izavenge ezuzibhatalayo ngoku zizawunyuka kwiminyaka ezayo. Into nje abantu bayingxamelayo into yokuba the moment kusithiwa mandisayine apha loo nto ithetha into yokuba ndiyayifumana le mali ndiyayifumana le moto le ndlu kanjalo kanjalo. But into yokuba bafunde laa contract ichazayo into yokuba mhla waze awakwazi ubhatala nanga amanyathelo onowathatha, ukhuseleke njani, uwagcina njani olu khuseleko lwakho kweli tyala lakho. Ngoba siyazi ukuba abantu bayalahlekelwa yimisebenzi. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a way of life uba umuntu amke emhlabeni. Then you find ukuthi ityala lileqa umuntu oshiyekileyo, mhlawumbi ispouse okanye abantwana njalo njalo. So abantu into esiyibonileyo based on uncedo abaye balufune xa belahlekelwe ngumsebenzi okanye ukubaleka kwabo balibaleke elityala xa belahlekelwe ngumsebenzi, isibonisa into yokuba abazi ukuba bakhuselekile, bayazi ukuthi eli tyala line-insurance yobomi balo elityala.
Nangabe kuthola ukuthi umthengi bekangadi ukuthi une credit insurance, nangabe ulahlekelwa umsebenzi noma ke uya retrenchwa bese ke yamlahlekela whatever product lekayithatha on credit, does that mean ukuthi vele sekumphelele? What happens to all the premiums that he's been paying all these months?
Umthengisi unalo naye ixanduva loveza into ezinjena. Khumbula kaloku obudlelwano bubudlelwano bomthengi nomthengisi, i-consumer ne-credit provider. So in as much as umthengi naye enamalungelo enamaxanduva, nomthengisi naye unexanduva loziveza ezi zinto yokuba njengokuba sowusithi uphelelwe ngumsebenzi, ndicela undithumele incwadi echazayo uba uphelelwe ngumsebenzi nazo zonke iinkcukacha azidingayo. Angayeki umthengi athi ndiphelelwe ngumsebenzi ndicela ukwenza ii-arrangements, ngoba ixesha elininzi sibona uba abantu bavele bathi ndifuna ukwenza ii-arrangements okanye umntu ayibuyisele imoto athi iza noyithatha indlu. Kanti une-responsibility naye umthengisi yokuthi unento enjena nenjena nenjena engakunceda, and thina sizawuqhubeka olu hlobo nawe phambili and iza kunceda for ixesha elinga, ngokuba le insurance le yobomi beli tyala idla ngokuthatha between 6 to 12 months. And umthengisi ufuneka achaze ukuba unexesha elinga wena xa uthe awawufumana umsebenzi uyakwazi uphinda ubuye uzosichazela sibone uba siqhubeka kanjani. So i-responsibility ikhona nalapha kumthengisi.
Okay, all right. Siyabonga kakhulu ke Salama kubeka lelo phuzu. Lee, let me bring you into this conversation. Most credit agreements are often written in complex and complicated and often confusing language. How do we navigate around this?
Okay, so firstly, I mean, it's as my colleague intimated earlier that as a consumer, you're entitled to receive a contract and explanation in one of the official languages in terms of Section 63 of the National Credit Act. I think that's the basis. I mean, if somebody doesn't understand English, if English is not their first language, you can't expect complex terms and complex words to be spoken to them in a format that they don't understand. So a consumer must insist that the agreement is given to them in a language of their choice and a language that they understand. Secondly, we know obviously by dealing, we each are consumers that are on the call here, the contracts that we enter into, it's not easily readable. You know that when you sign any sort of agreement, there's a lot of legal terms, there's a lot of language that's used in there that sometimes one may not understand, which is why, and I must stress this point, the consumer needs to understand what rights they have, such as a right to receive the agreement in their own language, rights such as they must know what's the limits in terms of what insurance charges one can apply. This is easily accessible, I'm sure, on the NCR website, or basically if you can even Google what these terms are. It's like 450 for every 1,000 naira of insurance for an unsecured credit agreement. We know in the past there were sort of quite high charges for insurance, but that's now regulated. The other thing is a consumer must understand what impact that insurance is going to have on the installment. Remember, this is going to affect your affordability. If I have an affordability threshold of 500 rands a month, and my agreement and my installment is going to come a bit more than that, it's going to affect my affordability. So the consumer has to factor this in. And the last important thing, they must understand what happens in terms of default, even as Maurice spoke about it previously, in that if a consumer defaults, then insurance is not covered. If I don't make payment for 3 months and I'm retrenched in the second month, or if I lose my job, there's a possibility that the credit provider will not pay out that insurance. That means you lose out on the premiums that you've paid all this time. And from our personal experience, we know that there are certain credit providers that enter into an agreement whereby they tell the consumer, listen, let us make an agreement whereby even in default, we will cover the insurance on your behalf, so that if an event occurs, it will still be successful. So that's another very important point that a consumer should consider, and maybe put it to the credit provider to say, listen, can we not include in the agreement that if I am in default for a period of up to 6 months, let's say for an example, that you still will cover me, and whatever premiums I owe you will be included and embedded in the contract itself. But it boils down to one simple point, is that whatever you do not understand, regardless of how complex the language may be, ask the question before signing the document. Because once you sign the document, it becomes very difficult to prove that you did not understand what you were entering into. And as part of TCF, treat customer fairly, one of the principles are that the product must be fit for the purpose for which it is given. That means a needs assessment, a risk assessment. You as a consumer know what your needs are. You know what your risks are. So make sure the credit provider understands it and doesn't apply a sort of a one shoe fits all approach. That's the most important thing that you have to consider.
You made such a valid and very interesting point, and please hold your thought. I want us to talk a bit more about, the turnaround time or the window period that is acceptable for a credit insurance to kick in. Please hold the thought. We'll certainly touch base with you and continue with that conversation in just a moment. Please stay with us. Make sure that you take that phone and call us on the numbers on your screens right now, 0117146919, number 0117146918. Ungasithumela futhi email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Kwanyalo asasisishelele ngasemakethe leli lungelo lakho. Welcome back. Khumbula ke bekunene ukuthi tincingo tethu sesivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungabeka umbono wakho. Call us on 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919. Again, you can share your thoughts on our email at consumer@sabc.co.za. Let's take our first caller. Sinangosinathi ulapha ke ibizana. Sekumolweni hlalweni sawubona.
Ayethe mhlekazi.
Hi baba kunjani?
Hello.
Yes baba sekumolweni hlalweni sawubona baba.
Bona Nkosi yami kunjani?
Siphilile, khuluma nathi baba.
Ike. Empondini bandaku 97. I mean 2001 emarket. Now into enzekayo ibhange ayithenga uthi banga take off installment. Ngabe ndisele lezo insurance yonke into ndiyenzile kodwa ndakhutshwe endlini nangoku. Uyaqonda?
Manje yolani alivakali babe uthi
Ndivamthazi.
Ya asikuva kahle ngoba line lakho alivakali uthi wathatha i-insurance wathatha ama products on credit. Sicela uphinze liphuzo lakho baba.
Ndithi mhlekazi wami ndandiyisayinile yendlu uyaqonda. Into eyenzeka ibhange yandikhuphe yangayikhuphi yonke into ndandiyaqonda ngoba ndidendwe emsebenzini ngenxa yogula uyaqonda. Seba no ndicela uba ntoni Nkosi ndanditake over installment sendlu ndawuthi ebhanki zange ndimamele kwayona uyaqonda endlini kunangoku. Hello.
Okay, all right. Siyabonga kakhulu kushayela baba. Yes, siyabonga kakhulu kushayela baba. Our guests will try to help you in that regard. Siyabonga kakhulu baba Nkosinathi. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you've been listening. Baba Maluleke ngicela ngawe ke ukuthi kahle kahle uthi baba Nkosinathi la wathenga indlu and then bamkhipha ke kule ndlu enza bayithi wagula ngoba angasakhona ke kusebenza. Ukuthi ke ungabe ungamluleka uthini lapha kulelo hlangothi?
Okay. Simple inkinga ukuthi abathengi in most cases mabana ma challenges or inkinga kunokuthi baziveze they will sit and wait for a credit provider ukuthi ithathe inyathelo ezithize and end up getting evicted.
Okay.
If there are changes kuma circumstances yempilo yakho kubalekile ukuthi wazise ibhangi lakho. If ulahlekelwa umsebenzi kubalekile ukuthi ubazise ngokuthi awazi ukuthi mhlambe you have a cover that they can usually assist you, cover you for 6 to 12 months. Noma makube you are disabled for some reasons, there's a cover that can actually cover leyo nto le. Now the problem is ngama consumers wethu is you wait until the credit provider start taking legal action. And when they are about to actually either evict you or confiscate or maybe repossess, that's when you start raising issues. So kubalulekile kakhulu ukuthi when you are facing challenges, when kunama changes empilweni yakho, whether it's about disability, whether it's about retrenchment, immediately talk to your credit provider ukuthi babone ukuthi how can they actually banganceda kanjani ngokuthi indaba zokuthi mase baqale nge-legal action abazi ngeke bazi ukuthi ulahlekelwe umsebenzi uma ungabazisi. So yiko sithi kubaluleke kakhulu ukuthi go through i-credit agreement yakho. Ama-agreement esinawo as NCR si-review ama-credit agreement annually to make sure ukuthi thina sama-consumers we are able to read them. We don't allow any fine print. We don't allow any Latin anymore. It's pure English, which is straightforward. And the credit providers are actually compelled to have to explain bachaze kubathengi ukuthi Mr. So-and-so, the credit agreement yakho from beginning to end, it has to disclose all costs, charges, terms and conditions, in case of default, in case of retrenchment, in any change of circumstances, melichaze ibe straightforward. So I will urge our consumers ngathi abathengi ukuthi kubalulekile ukuthi any change of circumstances, bakona change empilweni yakho, retrenchment, disability or death, please communicate nama credit providers wakho. Ungahlali nje ngokuthi ngeke baze bazi. They cannot guess ukuthi you are sick. They cannot guess ukuthi you have been retrenched. And given the situation here to COVID-19, we are all aware ukuthi the impact was not only in the health sector, also economically it impacted on everybody. So you can't sit back and say the credit providers knows that I'm not well, or maybe I've lost my job, or maybe my salary has been cut. You need to talk to them and give them your situation and take it from there.
Baba Nkosinathi la uphinze wangeta ukuthi wacela ke nkosikazi wakhe ukuthi athathe over lama installment. Does that validate the cover?
Okay. Remember, as I've indicated, everything needs to be done in time. Once the legal process commences, it becomes a problem to can reverse things. I mean, I'll give you an example. You default 3 months. Obviously, it impacts on your credit standing with credit bureaus. What I mean by that is you need to actually talk to them. Yes, you wanted to do that, but do it immediately once there are circumstances change in your situation. Once a step is taken, it becomes so difficult to get, not unless if you employ the services of an attorney to can actually assist you. That is why I said it's very important to go through a credit agreement, terms and conditions, and insist on them taking you through that contract. But you might find out a credit provider my approach. It was too late. It's better if you approach them because you are the only person that is aware of changes in your circumstances. Okay. So remember, credit providers, they have thousands and thousands of consumers. Unfortunately, they are not keeping a check in terms of what but it's only us as consumers to say, I'm confronting you, credit provider, my circumstances have changed. What is it that we can do? My credit agreement 80, I have a cover. Can we enforce it until such time that my circumstances improve?
Okay, all right. Siyabonga kakhulu ke kubeka lelo phuzu lelo Mr. Maluleke. Let's take another caller. Sinamfundo olapha ke eWitbank. Sakumoyela ehleleni sawubona.
Yebo kunjani?
Siyaphela kunjani baba?
Ngiyaphila. Ukhuluma nomfundo waseWitbank.
Sakumukela baba. Khuluma nathi baba. What's on your mind?
Ya, ngicela ukubuza la.
Yeah, khuluma nathi baba.
Uthethe i-loan and wazi ukuthi u-permanent, and then before or after 3 months, and then bese bakhipha i-notice ukuthi nizo-retrenchwa, and then siphuma njani lapho?
Uphuma kanjani ke angawuva kahle lo mbuto wakho baba?
Ngisho ukuthi uthethe i-loan and then before or after 3 months banike ama-notice ukuthi nizo-retrenchwa, and then lesiyilungisa kanjani ni-credit provider yakho la uthethe khona i-loan.
So now uthatha le loan beyikhona yini i-credit insurance? Now isayina le loan bakutshela ke labo labakunika le loan ukuthi ikhona ke ikhathi kule loan i-credit insurance? Bathi beyingekho?
Yona beyikhona kodwa bachazanga ukuthi ithatha for how many months before iba active.
Okay, all right. Siyabonga kakhulu ukushayela. Yeah, Mr. Maluleke, yeah, nangim understand kahle mfundo lapha uthi wathatha i-loan after 3 months ke bathole notice ukuthi ke ba retrench ukuthi ke ingabe ithatha isikhathi esinganani ukuthi ibe effective that credit insurance.
Look, I think ama circumstances vary, but as njengoba sikhuluma namhlanje ngendaba yokuthi disclosure nokuthi asking questions nokuthi futhi make sure that you understand before you take that agreement and walk out. Some will cover you immediately, but amanye there will be a waiting period of some sort. So as ngiyangasho ukuthi ama circumstances they actually vary, but it's different if in a case where the consumer knew that they will be retrenched at a certain point and still continue to sign an agreement. It becomes a bit of a challenge because once they request proof or a letter that indicate that you are going to be retrenched, obviously that matter could have been discussed maybe 6 months or 5 months before you sign the agreement. So as consumers, we need to be honest that I'll be retrenched. Let me not incur more debts. But it covers you from what point, or maybe there was a waiting period of how many months. Yeah, but it shouldn't be just a matter of taking the credit agreement. What if you take it today and maybe a week later you are retrenched or maybe disabled? It won't cover you. And it's important. If it covers you on the payment of your first installment, that needs to be disclosed in the contract as well. So if it's not disclosed, then it becomes a problem. Now your credit provider cannot enforce something that is not in an agreement. Remember, an agreement is a contract is an agreement between 2 individuals or two parties. What is disclosed in the contract? It means we agree. The only time where the insurance will start covering your debt in the event of AB will be after a month, 2 months, okay, so that we are clear. So that when I sign and we agree, it's enforced, then it's something that actually I've signed for, which I understood. So NCT, it varies from agreement to agreement in terms of the credit life cover. But it's important as well to actually make them aware that, yes, a letter of retrenchment, then where do we go from here? No, the credit providers will actually accommodate you in the event that maybe you have a credit life where you have challenges. Some will go to an extent of saying, we'll freeze your interest, we'll give you an opportunity to look for a job, maybe 3 or 6 months. And when you get a job, please come back to us. Let's continue from where you left off, without that being in the agreement.
All right, thanks for that. Let's take another commercial break. Ngasanyaka-ke mbukeli siyabona khona leli lungelo lakho. Asinamukele futhi bekunene ke ilungelo lakho, it's your right. Namhlanje we're talking about credit life insurance and how it can at this difficult time help so many struggling consumers. For your views or questions, share ke licingo ku 011-714-6918 noma ke 011-714-6919 or follow us on Facebook, or alternatively drop us an email on consumer@sabc.co.za. We've got 3 very important guests namhla. Sina Salim Nyati, she's a consumer coach. Spinza sibe na Morris Maduleke, a supervisor at the National Credit Regulator, and Liso Brati from the Office of the Credit Ombudsman. Now, Salim, let me also bring you into this conversation. Ningabe, at what point does a credit insurance kick in? Ningabe, iqala kusebenza nini ke i-credit insurance? Nangabe ngirentrenchiwe noma ke ngixoshiwe noma ke ngidirisanele nje emsebenzini ngenza bayithi angivani nemphathi wami.
I-credit life insurance isebenza uma uphelelwe ngumsebenzi, hayi uma ubuyekile umsebenzi.
Okay.
So zohlukile lezo ndaba lezo ngoba otherwise kaloku sonke ngesiresign emsebenzini sihambe siyoclaima kula credit life insurance, amatyala ethu abhataleke. So isebenza xa uphelelwe ngumsebenzi, i-case retrenchment, okanye xa une disability or umkile emhlabeni, lanto kuthiwa kukufa. Kulapho ke ngoku ingena khona i-credit life insurance.
Nangabe ngixoshiwe ke.
Sorry?
Uba ngabe ngixoshiwe emsebenzini?
Uba uxoshiwe, or let me put it this way, uphelelwe ngumsebenzi at no fault yakho, ngoba uba uxoshiwe emsebenzini ayingeni ke kunjalo, because iyafana ngathi uzimkele. It's only when umsebenzi uphelele wena not xa ugqithiwe. Xa ugqithiwe, it's totally different. And indlela esebenza ngayo awunikwa mali ngumthengisi.
Okay.
Kuthiwe nansi imali insurance like njengoba uzayifumana mhlawumbe kwi-life cover. Kuye kubhatalwe izavenge zetyala lakho for ixesha engange-6 to 12 months, or mhlawumbi ke ukuthiwe awukawufumana umsebenzi uyakwazi ukuphinda ubuyele phaa kubo uthi andikawufumana umsebenzi baza kuxelela baqhubeke kanjani.
Here's where it gets interesting, Salem. Nangabe ngicoshiwe uthola ukuthi ngicoshwe ngalokungekho emthethweni, ngimthathe umqashi wami ngimixe enkantolo. Inkantolo isho ukuthi nembala vele ngicoshwe ngalokungekho ke emthethweni, kuphuma vele ne court order ukuthi no, vele the reasons why I was fired are not valid and how I was fired is also not valid. Lokho ke, does it also kick in?
Kulapho ke imibutho efana no National Credit Regulator ingena khona ke bhuti wami kwiimeko ezinjalo ke, because khumbula ke at that point in time mhlambi sekuninzi okwenzakileyo, because kaloku i-process yokuba umuntu ahambe kwi-CCMA ayo overnight. Ufumanise uba ngelo xesha sowuxuthelwe nezinye izinto, sekungene nezinye i-court order ezixuthisa imoto, ezixuthisa izindlu. So kulapho ke ngokubangena khona bona in terms of uncedakala njani ke ngokuwena as umthengi.
Okay, Maurice, sitawukhuluma nawe nje just a moment because this touches on your office. But let's take another caller. Sinantombi ulapha eSasolburg. Sekumele lihlelo sawubona.
So okay.
Uthini umbuto wakho mama?
Ngicela ubuza ngingomnye wabagxothwe unfair. So icase yami sese-CCMA ndicela ukwazi ke ngokuba inoba ke ngoku mna ndindawoni because ndathatha iloan ngo-2017, so bekumele uba ndiyayigqiba ngo-August walo nyaka. So because of i-COVID ke kwaqala kwabakho i-shortage yemali, ndabaxelela ukuthi sikhathelwa ama-hours ngoku andisa-afford ubhatala la full installment. So after 3 months kwaba yile unfair dismissal, ndagxothwa basifuna i-particulars ndabanika mna ke ndikweyiphi indawo ke ngoku iphi ke i-insurance yami izawusebenza from 2017 up to 2020 masithi ngo-April.
So i-credit insurance wayithatha na uthatha leyo loan?
I-loan bandixelela bona uba ndiyazi uba ine-insurance and xa ndicheka xa ndicalculate le mali, imali endandiyithathile sendiyibhatele plus ndiyibhatele ampurdabule.
Okay.
So,
all right. No, siyabonga khulu kusishayela sis. Thank you so much for your call.
Okay.
All right, now Maurice, let me bring you into this conversation. Ngiyathemba ukuthi bomvile ke nasesintombi lapha ke eSasolburg. And another issue that I want to engage you further on is that issue of when a credit insurance takes effect. Bengicaza kukhuluma ke naSalem uthi only nangabe uretrenchiwe noma ke uphelele umsebenzi as a result of disability. But then nangabe ucoshiwe uthi ke Salema no leyo credit agreement noma ke leyo credit insurance ayisebenzi. Sengiyambuda ke Salema ukuthi nangabe ngicoshwe ngalokungekho ke emthethweni ngaya ka CCMA ngaya eLabour Court ngaya ke nasenkantolo lenkulu yasho vele inkantolo ukuthi no umcashi wami ungicoshwe ngalokungekho emthethweni uthi ngabe ke i-credit insurance itawusebenza ke kulelo hlangothi.
Okay. Thanks for bringing this to my attention as well. Usis Salimu right. There's a difference between being retrenched and being dismissed because of your wrongdoing. Obviously, it's a process you prove whether you were at fault or not. And credit agreement, credit providers will never wait for you to actually get to the end of it, because that process had nothing to do with the credit agreement that you signed with them. Okay. So it's important as well to actually call us, our office, to actually get advice in terms of if you are in that situation, what is it that they can do, phone our call center. We have legal advisors that can actually assist you and advise you with regards to that. Remember, our mandate will only revolve around the credit agreement. Anything outside that, obviously, which has nothing to do with us, we can't be able to advise you. But anything that has to do with a credit provider, who is our registrant, and you as a consumer, we can actually take you through and actually advise you. In this situation, either you'll inform them that you have been dismissed and the matter is still before court. Inform them and engage us as well with that regards. So that you can actually have a backup in the event that, indeed, at the end of the day, you have informed them, but they still continue to actually take action against you. As in their interest is about you paying their installment, the agreement that you have entered with them. But it's important to call our office so that we can actually advise you. Other processes, legal processes from the side, we can't be able to actually intervene, not unless maybe you get legal advice.
Okay.
Then for the second question, umbuzo wesibili konje Simpiwe?
No, besibuta nje ukuthi ngabe does it kick in? I mean, the credit insurance, does it kick in? Tangabe ke ngixoshiwe sakhuluma ke ndzaba the circumstances leading to credit insurance kicking in or taking effect. But please hold your thought. We'll continue our conversation in just a moment. Bekne asathathe likhefu lekugcina siyabuya emva kwalekhefu. Welcome to our very final segment. Let's take our final caller. Sinamxolisi ulapha ke emdansane. Sakumole ehleleni sawubona.
Sawubona mhlekazi.
Khuluma nathi baba, what's on your mind?
Ngo-2018 ndaphuma emsebenzini medical retirement. Ndabe ndinama-service provider endiwakweletayo. Ndawasubmitha i-documents. Month ndifumene i-statement sokuthi ndiphumile emsebenzini. But zange bandinike nto, bandithumelela ama-forms ndawafilisha, but amatyala bona zange bawabhatale. Abamatyala enawo insurance omabili. Andazi bakwenzeka kunanamhlanje basangikoleka.
Okay. All right. Siyabonga kakhulu kusishayela. Our credit experts are online to answer some of your questions. Thank you so much for your call. Now, Lee, just in closing, please take us through the steps that one can apply or engage in order to claim a credit insurance.
Okay, for sure. So at the outset, like we've mentioned and stressed many times, if there's any indication or any sense that something's going to happen, if you get obviously wind that something's happening at work, like Maurice spoke about, contact your credit provider immediately. The sooner they know your circumstances, the better they can provide your options to you. Options, example, extending a contract, giving you a payment holiday, those sort of things. But contact them immediately because they are the first point of contact. If you go to the credit provider and you lodge the application and you don't get feedback within 2 days, follow up with them, follow up with the NCR, contact our officer, see how you can engage or escalate the matter so that somebody can hear and start the process immediately. Remember, different things apply for disability, for retrenchment, partial or temporary disability. Remember, look at the exclusions of your contract, look at the wording of your contract, get yourself familiar with contact numbers. If you're unsure about things, get clarity on it, look at your cost of charges on the insurance. At the end of the day, the more you know, the better informed you are and the better decisions you can make. If you have existing policies, present them to the credit provider, let them see if they can consider. If they can't, you know you've tried your best. But at the end of the day, it's about saving money and obviously ensuring that your rights are protected.
Okay, Mr. Morris, your closing comments?
My closing comments is when you apply for credit, make sure that you understand the contents and make sure that if where you miss out, make sure that it's explained to you. Make sure that you have a credit life cover or you can actually bring your own. But make sure that you continue to actually pay your installment so that it can remain activated.
Yes.
It's pointless to actually default along the way. At the end of the day, when you lose your job or maybe there's a cut in your income, then it becomes a problem when you have to claim. So make sure that the contents of your
Can I still activate my credit insurance later? Can I still continue from where I left off?
Okay. Once your policy lapses, it will lapse. You'll have to actually reactivate it.
Yeah.
Talk to your credit provider, talk to your insurance to actually reactivate it. But it cannot continue because it has actually lapsed.
Okay.
Hence, it's important to talk to your credit provider in any change in your circumstances. But most importantly, please go through your contract. Our numbers are there in the event that we have a complaint in the contract. We insist that they include NCR numbers in the event that consumers are not happy with the transaction.
All right. Salem, your final words as we close the show?
Ka ungumthengi unobudlelwane nomthengisi ayikho one way lanto. So singabantu masiyeke ukoyika abathengisi sizenze ngathi singabantu abacengayo ngoba nabo bayayidinga le mali yethu. Hlala phansi nomthengisi uqonde ba ithini relationship yethu kwenzele ukwazi nawo ukuthi ndicela into ethile si-structurisha olhlobo hayi le ayizondisebenzela le izandisebenzela olhlobo kwenzele into yokuba xa udibana nengxaki ukwazi uphinda ubuyele kwapha kubo. So umuntu makayi-understande kwasekuqaleni ndikhuselekile na kweli tyala ndikhuseleke njani. Kubalulekile njengobhuti Morris etshilo masizifunde izinto ukuba ayikusebenzeli ungcono ke uthi hayi ke asivumelani. Also umuntu une-cooling period Uxa usuthathe i-credit agreement uneenzuku ezinhlanu zokubuya ufunda la contract. Uba kukho into eningangqinelani ngazo uyakwazi ukuthi hayi ke ndiyemka mna ke apha buphele ubudlelwane ungekangeni kwela tyala.
Okay, Sele Mnyati, consumer coach, Maurice Madulege, supervisor at the National Credit Regulator. Now, Lee Subrati from the Credit Ombudsman Office, thank you so much to you three for your valuable insight. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Ake mbukele singakalugcogcoti ke hlelo angicela nje ukubeka nawo ukuthi nangabe ufuna ukusishayela ucingo ku 0117146918 sicela ukuthi ushayele ngabomsombuluko kuphela between 12 and 1 ungasishayeli any other day ngoba utawendeka vele ungangeni utawendeka futhi ungasidakali. Please make sure that you call us on the live show which is 12 to 1 p.m. Ake mbukeli sesifika kanjalo ke maphethelweni lehlelo lethu namhla. Many thanks to our guests for their time. Ngithanza ukubonga nani ngekuba nathi kuze kube manje. Please join us again for yet another interactive consumer affairs discussion from Ms. Mphiwe Ngongwane and the rest of the team. Sisintshale kahle. Have a great week ahead. Cheers.
Hallelujah.